Grand Rising, everyone. This is Dawn with Advanced Life Coaching, advlifecoaching.com. And please feel free to get a hold of me if you need some mindset coaching, wellness consulting. My own personal story. I went from having a stage 4 cancer diagnosis to today being in remission, cancer-free. And I did that without chemo. I did a lot of holistic stuff as well as working with modern doctors and using Eastern and Western medicines combined. And my biggest takeaway from that is our mindset. I am walking this great morning with the pups, and I kind of wanted to talk about mindset today and using some of the scenarios that the world is going through right now. I feel like when you have that negative energy, that negativity, that really dense, low 3D energy, it holds you to this 3D planet. And 3D energy really is it's control, it's fear. So if someone's talking about, oh, we live in this 3D world, yeah, it is physical, but it's also a denser energy. And when people talk about, oh, we're going to move, the world's moving up to 5D and da-da-da, true, that's true. And we're also doing that with technology, how we went from 3D to 5D, or 3G to 5G. And it really is kind of one and the same. So if you're thinking about the universe from an energetic field, you have to think of us as human beings are also having an upgrade, kind of going from a 3D version of ourselves up to a 5D. And I kind of feel like I hit that energy field when I was able to heal, and when I was able to go from being ill to being healthy. And I really feel like a great part of that was connecting to an energy, to a field higher than this lower third dimensional energy. And I had to do that with a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, a lot of faith, a lot of believing that I could heal, believing that there's something greater than ourselves. And it also made me realize that when I was speaking to myself, when I was speaking to others, I really had to be careful of the words I used, because I was creating my own reality. I could not say that I was ill. I had to say I was healing. I had to say I'm healed. Even when at the worst that I felt, I had to sit there and say, I feel great. This is wonderful. This is an experience. This is awesome. This is temporary. And I feel like with what's going on in the world around us today, and I know that right now we're having conflicts with the Middle Eastern country, and I feel like a lot of people are getting angry with our president about some of the words he says. When he says, he's willing to eliminate, this entire country. I don't think people are putting the right perspective on this. I think if you really think of it not from a 3D mindset, but from a 5D mindset, then you realize we are moving into a 5D world. And some people like the 3D mindset, and they can't even fathom a 5D world. They can't imagine a world without control. So I've heard people say, well, if he's willing to get rid of everything, I don't think he is. I don't think he is. I think you have to speak with two people at the level that they're at. And if he's speaking to 3D mindseted people, then he has to speak with chaos and with control and with anger, because that's all they know, that's all they understand. Just like I had to speak to myself with love and kindness, because I believe the illness set in because of unresolved chaos and anger. So I guess my point is using that same mentality of understanding 3D world and 3D thoughts and how they created a very negative situation. I can look at the world right now and say, okay, the mindset of these individuals, which is creating this 3D lower energy world and this lower mindset, they cannot understand a 5D philosophy of let's all live in peace. Let's all have a chance to be happy. Let's all have a chance to be individuals. Let's all have a chance to shine and show the greatness that we were created to have. If your mindset is women and children are to be controlled and the men are to be the, lack of a better word, slave owners, and we're going to sell children at 6 years old and marry them off. Okay, this is really barbaric. There is no higher energy in that mindset. And then you have people, individual people, not the leaders, who are advancing in their mindset, who no longer want that, who no longer want to put up with that. I'm not saying they ever liked it. Some may have. Put it this way, if it's going to benefit them, maybe a man who doesn't want to deal with his anger, maybe a man who's been oppressed for generations in their mindset, you are passing along generational hatred, generational pain, generational fears. You are passing this along. And now you have thousands of years of this mindset of hate. There. And when you get to that, it's really hard for people who have already hit that 5D level to look at them and understand how to communicate at that level. If you are a kind, loving person and you want freedom for all, you want people who are really artistic to be able to advance in their talents, and you want people to be who they were created, because we were all created so magnificently by our higher creator, and they don't even get a chance to know who they are when they're being controlled and sold. And and it's funny because so many people in the Middle East, so many women are educated. They are so brilliant. But then They're not allowed to be up to their greatest potential. And same with men. You know, when they're carrying around anger and they have to take it out on women and abuse their women and children, and they can't love like we were created to love, that creates a lot of anger, a lot of inner conflict of you want to be a better person, you want to be kinder, you want to love more, you want to be loved more, but you can't, because how is someone going to love you when you're abusing them, when you're not letting them be who they were created to be? It's really, really this barbaric energy, this very low level existence. And people are saying, well, you know, these threats that are being made back and forth. Well, you can't go into a meeting or a communication with a 5D mindset into a 3D conversation. And I think that's what people are missing. It's not that we're trying to keep the conflict going. It's just when you're dealing with certain people, or not certain people, it's not the people, it's the mindset. Change the mindset, the real person will come back out. The problem is, how do you change the mindset? How do you change a mindset that is so ingrained for control? And that, you know, that's kind of the tricky part. You can't go into that conversation with kumbaya. You can't walk up and say, hey, we want you to stop fighting. We want you to change your whole society. We want you to start showing respect to someone who does not understand what that means, because they've never had it. They've never had self-respect because they haven't been allowed to treat others with respect. They haven't been taught self-love because they're not allowed to love. And maybe this is more the government, because I'm sure there's the individual people, they want that change. They've been craving it. They had the freedom. They had self-love. And then they got it taken away. And they want that back. The only ones who don't want it are the ones who are going to lose control. So you have to understand this mindset. And please, before people go half-cocked and angrily fight with one another, please understand the perspective, the mindset behind some of what's going on. Are people saying, we want to destroy this country, we want to get rid of these people? If you don't do this, we're going to do that? Well, they may not actually want to do that, but if they didn't speak to them like that, they couldn't force a change. They couldn't, the other side wouldn't understand the change or what could happen. You have to talk to people where they're at. You know, wherever their mindset is at is where you have to come from. I could not have healed if I came from a place of fear. That it just would not have been possible. Because healing takes place when the body feels safe. Do you think the people in these very controlled societies feel safe? No. Can the healing happen while they're living in fear? No. But how do you take away fear from fear? With a threat that you are going to annihilate it. And how do you think the people living in fear respond to that? You have to really think of this from so many different angles. You just can't look at a complex problem with your own view of the world. You can't look at this complex problem from a 5D perspective when it's a 3D problem. And that goes with any healing. That goes with whether you're healing your own body or mind. That goes for anything in your life and other people's. Try to understand the perspective of the core of the problem. And I feel like in our politics right now, there are people, politicians, who understand this. And they are speaking not from their perspective, but from the energy and perspective of where the problem originated. And I do understand that this might be a hard concept for others to comprehend, because it's not how they think. It's not even how I think, but it is because I understand the different perspectives. And for me, I look at these problems and I'm like, nothing's going to change till they get to the core of the problem. The core is this foundational mindset. And, in talking politically, one thing that was said that really made a lot of sense was, unless the people rise up to support and demand a change, there can't be a change. And it has to be a collective consciousness. And I understand that. I understand whether, no matter what country you're in, what business you're in, what environment you're in, that has to be a consistent mindset. You must have a collective consciousness. And I feel like in the universe right now, that's what we're trying to change. That is what all this chaos is about. Rooting out the root cause and getting to a higher collective consciousness, a higher energy, a higher perspective. And it's not easy. It's not easy energetically. It's not easy mentally. But please have calm. Please have peace. Please settle on the fact that this too shall pass. The change is coming. There are more people who want this change than who don't, even in the area where this change needs to happen, which is the good thing. That is the good thing. Have faith. Believe in them. Believe that they are evolving to a higher 5D mindset and energetic space. Because when you do that, you won't be fighting amongst yourself. When we're sitting here yelling hate at the leaders because they're trying to meet someone where they're at, and it's not where we're at, because we are above that barbaric thinking. We cannot create more of that 3D energy. We cannot create more hate. We cannot create more division, trying to support one side or another. What we need to do is look at the big picture. We need to look at the big picture and say, hey, I get it. I get it. You don't want to blow up half the planet. I get it. But you need to speak to people who do a way they'll understand at their level. It's hard. It's hard to sit back and listen to that without the perspective that you're meeting someone where they are. And, get away from politics. You do that in daily life all the time. Maybe you're talking to someone and you're trying to explain, hey, we have to do things this way. And they're not understanding. Maybe you're talking to a child and you start showing them, teaching them how to do something. You're meeting them where they are, teaching them from their level and their perspective. We just have to understand. Sometimes we have to do that on a grand scale and in ways which don't fit other people's reality. And that is where peace and love and change happen. And I hope this weird kind of conversation here, helps you to find some peace and see a whole problem, maybe from a different perspective, from a different understanding, from a different place where it makes more sense, where you can see how it might be productive, even though it feels like it's not, because it feels like that lower energy. And that's what we're trying to get away from. And we don't like that feeling. We don't like it. We don't like the words, don't like the tone, we don't like anything about it. But if we don't meet it at that place and deal with it there, it's going to continue. And when we give it resistance, it's going to continue to grow. And that's the last thing we want. What we're trying to do is dissipate it and change it. And please, just have some grace, have some faith, and understand that there is a collective consciousness behind it. There's a collective consciousness to heal, to evolve, to help, to love. As long as the main energy is love, we can prevail. And we will. It just may not look like what you think it's going to look like. At least not during the transition of it all. So, keep your mindset right. Be kind to yourself and others. Just for today, take a deep breath and relax. Just for today, find peace. Be pain-free. Be free. And just for today, love one another. And most of all, love yourself. Have a fabulous day.